Imagine waking up every morning feeling energized, clear, and certain that the day ahead isn't just another one to get through, but a genuine chance to grow, move forward, and finally take charge of your own life. But let's be honest for a second. How often do you actually wake up feeling this way? If you're like most people, you're probably dragging yourself out of bed feeling stuck, lost, or trapped in habits that no longer serve you. The truth is, how you begin your morning isn't just about those first few minutes. It shapes the entire course of your day, your mindset, and ultimately your life. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that waking up each morning is a precious privilege, the chance to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Today we're diving into how you can practically apply this wisdom every morning, building powerful habits that help you master your mind and take control of your day. If this resonates with you and you find value in reclaiming your mornings and your life, one small favor: hit that subscribe button. It genuinely supports the channel and helps this message reach more people who need it. Now let's get into it. Let's be honest. Most of us have a complicated relationship with mornings. I get it, your bed feels like a warm embrace, and the snooze button is your best friend whispering sweet lies of, just 5 more minutes. But here's a truth most people won't admit. Early mornings are absolute game changers. I'm not saying this to sound inspirational, this is just reality. Those quiet early hours, before emails flood in, before texts start pinging, before the chaos of life takes hold, are your golden window for clarity and control. Picture waking up just 1 hour earlier than usual, just one single hour. It might feel trivial, even painful at first, but imagine that hour as a peaceful sanctuary of uninterrupted time, your own personal oasis in the busy desert of daily life. No distractions, no demands, just you and your thoughts, planning your day, setting your intentions, or maybe reading something meaningful that anchors you in wisdom and perspective. The ancient Stoics understood this better than most. Seneca once said we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, reminding us that the dread of waking early is usually worse than actually doing it. It isn't the waking up that hurts, it's the story we tell ourselves that we'll be tired, miserable, or ineffective that truly holds us back. By rising earlier, you break that illusion, proving to yourself that discipline is freedom, exactly as Stoicism teaches. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first, but growth never comes from staying in your comfort zone. Carl Jung, the brilliant psychologist, put it powerfully when he said that whoever looks outward dreams, and whoever looks inward awakens. That extra hour in the morning is precisely when you can look inward, awakening not just your body but your deeper self, your authentic vision, and your genuine purpose. It's when insights surface, problems unravel, and clarity finally emerges. Your alarm goes off, you drag yourself out of bed, and what's the first thing you reach for? Let's be honest, most of us bolt straight for the coffee machine. Chasing that familiar caffeinated comfort we convince ourselves we need just to feel human again. And hey, I'm not saying coffee is evil, trust me, I get it. But here's a simple truth we often overlook in our groggy rush for that first espresso. Your body wakes up dehydrated. Literally overnight, your brain and body go without hydration for hours, making water, not caffeine, the first thing you genuinely need. So instead of immediately flooding your system with caffeine, start your day with a tall, refreshing glass of water. Think of it as hitting the reset button on your system. A simple yet powerful ritual that sets the tone for clarity and balance throughout your day. Stoic philosophers often emphasize the importance of mastering small, everyday actions as the keys to a greater life. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's sharpest minds, reminds us that progress isn't achieved through luck or accident, but through working on yourself daily. Drinking water first thing is exactly that, an act of daily discipline. A subtle signal to your mind and body that you're prioritizing well-being over habit. Your brain, fascinatingly, is composed mostly of water. When dehydrated, it struggles to function optimally, and attention, memory, and mood all suffer. Starting your day by replenishing those essential fluids is like giving your mind a gentle yet decisive wake-up call, preparing you to tackle whatever lies ahead with clearer thinking and steadier emotions. Carl Jung once remarked that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. This simple morning habit, drinking water before coffee, is a prime example of turning an unconscious, automatic reaction, that sleepy stumble toward the coffee pot, into a conscious, deliberate choice. It's about reclaiming control over your impulses, choosing wellness and clarity first rather than habitually reaching for instant gratification. Your morning is sacred ground. It's a blank canvas, a fresh start, an open field of possibilities. And yet most of us sabotage it instantly by grabbing our phones and plunging straight into a storm of notifications. That immediate rush of digital input floods your mind with anxiety, distraction, and stress, hijacking your day before it even has a chance to begin. Think about it. One moment you're lying comfortably, enjoying the last remnants of restful peace, and the next you're tangled up in emails, breaking news alerts, and social media posts from people you barely remember meeting. Why hand over control of your precious morning clarity to random updates and algorithms? Stoicism teaches us to guard our inner peace fiercely. Marcus Aurelius famously advised that we have power over our own minds, not outside events, and realizing this is where we find strength. Your phone is the gateway through which countless outside events invade your mental sanctuary every morning. By delaying that scroll, even just 30 minutes, you reclaim the power to choose your thoughts rather than reacting to whatever the digital world throws at you. Carl Jung also warned us clearly. We are not what happened to us. We are what we choose to become. Each morning you face a crucial choice. Will you become someone driven by external pressures and distractions, or will you deliberately shape your day around intention and self-awareness? Skipping that morning scroll doesn't just protect your mental state, it cultivates a stronger sense of self. You start the day knowing exactly who's in charge. You, not your feed. Consider how different your morning feels when you trade the screen for a moment of silence or reflection. Maybe you journal, read a meaningful passage, or simply breathe deeply, gathering your thoughts. You might even rediscover forgotten pleasures, savoring the quiet, or noticing the early sunlight. When you choose presence over endless scrolling, the day unfolds from clarity rather than chaos. There's something oddly powerful about starting your day with a small act of order. Not a big breakthrough, not a major win, just something simple, something within reach. You wake up, pull the covers tight, fluff the pillows, straighten the sheets, and boom, you've already done something intentional, something complete. You've started the day with structure instead of chaos, and that's not just tidiness, it's mental training. We live in a world that glorifies massive transformations and overlooks the value of tiny, consistent habits, but the Stoics knew better. They understood that greatness isn't found in grand gestures, it's forged in daily discipline, cleanliness, order, focus. Marcus Aurelius said not to waste the rest of your life worrying about what other people think of you, because it keeps you from doing anything useful. And isn't that what a messy room sometimes reflects? A mind that's distracted, pulled in 10 directions, worried more about the world outside than the world within. Making your bed might sound trivial, but it's the first signal you send to your brain. I'm in control today. I don't need motivation. I've got momentum. This one small act becomes your first promise kept, and promises kept build trust with yourself, a kind of self-respect that isn't loud but runs deep. Admiral William McRaven put it bluntly, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. Not because your bed alone will revolutionize your life, but because it sets a tone. If you can't get the little things right, how can you expect to manage the big ones? If you build the discipline to execute something so small every day without fail, what else might you be capable of? The ripple effect is real. Psychologically, it runs even deeper. Carl Jung believed in the symbolic power of our environment, writing that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our life and we'll call it fate. That cluttered space around you isn't just messy, it reflects inner noise, unprocessed thoughts, unresolved emotion. Tidy your environment, and you'll often find your thoughts follow. A made bed isn't just aesthetics, it's psychological alignment. This is how the Stoics lived, not with perfection but with purpose. They started each day by asserting control over their time, their space, and their mindset. Making your bed is about beginning the day on your own terms. A declaration that says I will not be ruled by disorder. I will not let my environment set the tone for my mind. I choose discipline even in the smallest things. Some mornings it feels like your body is dragging your soul behind it. Heavy limbs, foggy head, zero motivation. But the problem isn't that you're lazy or broken, it's that your system is still asleep. Your mind might have opened its eyes, but your body hasn't caught up yet, and until both are in sync, you're operating on low power. The fastest way to snap that connection into place, move. You don't need to crush a workout or sweat through your shirt before breakfast. This isn't about chasing six-packs or fitness records. It's about one simple thing activating your life force. Movement, gentle, deliberate, even slow is your body's way of saying I'm here, I'm ready, let's go. A few stretches, a walk around the block, some squats or yoga poses. That's it, just enough to wake up the nervous system, get the blood flowing, and remind your brain that you're not a machine, you're alive. The Stoics valued physical strength not for vanity but for vitality. Epictetus once said no great thing is created suddenly, and that includes your energy, your discipline, your sense of control, all of which build slowly, habitually, day by day. Moving in the morning isn't a workout, it's a ritual, a quiet act of self-respect that echoes through your mood, your focus, and even your relationships. There's psychology behind this too. Carl Jung believed in the deep link between body and mind, between what's unconscious and how it speaks through our physical form. He said the body is merely the visibility of the soul. If you're stiff, locked up, or physically dormant, what is your psyche saying? That it's stuck, repressed, tired. Get your body moving, and the mind often follows, not the other way around. There's also an emotional reset that comes with motion. Feel anxious, move. Feel stuck, move. Feel sad or unmotivated, move. Motion disrupts stagnation. It doesn't have to be elegant or choreographed. You just have to start, because once momentum kicks in, it creates a domino effect. Energy rises, clarity emerges, and suddenly you're not just going through the motions, you're steering your day with purpose. Seneca reminded us that it isn't that we have a short time to live, but that we waste so much of it. And let's be honest, how many mornings are wasted lying in bed scrolling, waiting to feel like it? Don't wait, don't negotiate, just move, before your excuses catch up. There's a moment right before you step into a cold shower where your brain screams, "Not today," and it's in that exact moment, when every part of you wants to retreat, that the transformation begins. That hesitation, that resistance, that's your comfort zone digging in its heels. But if you've been chasing mental strength, emotional clarity, or even just a sharper start to your morning, here's your entry point: cold water. No filters, no fluff, just you, your breath, and your will. Let's get this out of the way. Yes, it feels awful at first. It's not supposed to feel good, but that's the point. The Stoics were obsessed with voluntarily facing discomfort, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they understood something most of us forget. Comfort breeds weakness. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it isn't death a person should fear, but never truly beginning to live. In a world built around avoiding discomfort, stepping into a cold shower is a radical declaration that you're choosing to live with intention, courage, and grit. Psychologically, cold exposure jolts you into the present. The shock to your system pulls you out of mental fog and forces you to breathe deeply, focus, and override your instinct to flee. That's neuroplasticity in action, your brain rewiring itself to handle discomfort with less panic and more poise. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists," and that resistance to cold water is symbolic of every other discomfort you avoid. Fear of failure, of criticism, of uncertainty. Face the water and you begin learning to face the rest. It also builds what the Stoics called fortitude, mental resilience. Seneca believed in training both body and mind for adversity. He fasted, wore rough clothes, did hard things, not for the struggle itself but for the strength it gave him. Cold showers are a modern version of that, a daily practice of resistance training for your nervous system. You step in, breathe through the shock, and in doing so prove to yourself that you can endure discomfort without flinching. That kind of confidence doesn't stay in the bathroom. It follows you into work, into relationships, into life. And then there's the physiological benefit. Cold showers increase blood flow, release endorphins, and spike your alertness. You don't need coffee to feel awake, you need courage. That icy rush clears out the mental cobwebs and drops you straight into the moment. Alert, energized, present. You don't have to start with 5 minutes, start with 30 seconds. Just a blast of cold at the end of your warm shower. One moment of shock, one small win, one chance to say I do hard things. The Stoics believed virtue was forged in action, not theory. This is your action. A small moment of self-conquest. There's something powerful about giving shape to your thoughts, turning the mess inside your head into something visible, something real. Most of us carry a constant stream of worries, to DOS memories, judgments, and ideas all swirling in a chaotic loop, and left unchecked, that loop becomes a trap. It steals your focus, poisons your mood, and clouds your decisions before your day even begins. That's why journaling isn't some artsy trend, it's mental hygiene. A few minutes with a pen and paper can do more for your clarity than hours of overthinking ever will. The act itself is simple. Sit down and write, no rules, no grammar police, just a raw, honest release of whatever's sitting in your chest or cluttering your mind. It might be a lingering worry from yesterday, a vivid dream, a flash of gratitude, or a sharp piece of self-reflection. Let it pour out, don't filter, don't edit. This isn't about writing something beautiful, it's about emptying the mental junk drawer before the day fills it up again. The Stoics practiced this centuries ago. They wrote letters to themselves, reflections, reminders, warnings. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal we now know as Meditations, never meant to be published, never written for others, just private, personal notes to keep his principles sharp and his ego in check. In one passage he writes that the impediment to action advances action, that what stands in the way becomes the way. A line that may never have existed if he hadn't written it down, if he hadn't processed his challenges through ink and reflection. Journaling didn't just help him reflect, it helped him govern an empire with composure. Modern psychology backs this up too. Carl Jung believed the unconscious mind constantly tries to communicate with us, often through symbols, moods, and dreams. He wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. And what better way to bring the unconscious into light than by writing it down? When you journal, you give your inner world a voice, you uncover patterns you didn't know existed. Repeating frustrations, buried fears, old stories you've been living by without ever questioning them. Journaling is like having a quiet conversation with the part of you that rarely gets to speak, the part that isn't performing or pleasing, the part that tells the truth. And in that honesty, something shifts. You start seeing your situation more clearly, decisions feel less overwhelming, you begin noticing what actually matters and what's just noise. Even on your worst days, your journal is a safe space. You can be angry, anxious, lost, and it still listens, it still holds you. And on your best days, it becomes a vault of insights and victories you'd otherwise forget, unless they're captured in your own words. Seneca wrote that we should call ourselves to account every night. He believed self-examination was the root of wisdom. Morning journaling is that same principle in action, except you're not just reviewing the past, you're preparing your mind for the day ahead. There's a strange kind of anxiety that comes not from doing too much, but from not knowing what to do at all. You wake up, maybe even feeling motivated, but by the time noon hits, you're aimlessly jumping between tasks, chasing distractions, and ending the day exhausted with nothing real to show for it. That's not laziness, that's a lack of direction. And when you don't give your day a target, you give your energy away to anything loud enough to grab your attention. This is where goal setting comes in. Not in the lofty abstract vision board kind of way. I'm talking about setting clear, immediate goals, the kind you can act on today. Not 20, not 10, just three concrete, achievable tasks that move the needle, that create progress instead of motion. Because let's be honest, being busy doesn't mean you're being productive, and unless you define what success looks like today, you'll spend your time reacting to everything that isn't. The Stoics were deeply intentional with their time. They didn't believe in wandering through the day waiting for clarity to magically appear. Epictetus put it bluntly, first decide who you want to be, then do what you have to do. Translation: know where you're going, or someone else will take you somewhere else entirely. Even psychology backs this up. Carl Jung emphasized the importance of individuation, essentially becoming a whole, directed person. He believed goals aren't just tools for achievement, but for self-realization, writing that your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart, that whoever looks outward dreams, while whoever looks inward awakens. When you define your goals with honesty and intention, you're not just planning your day, you're shaping your identity. And here's the thing, goals don't need to be massive. In fact, smaller is better. Reply to that email you've been avoiding. Write 1 page. Walk for 20 minutes. When you keep your goals simple and actionable, you give yourself permission to actually finish something, and that creates momentum. Accomplishment isn't about size, it's about completion. Because one finished task builds confidence, while 10 half-done ones just build frustration. Most people don't realize how fragile their mental state is in the morning. You wake up, and within seconds your brain is scanning for input, something to react to, something to attach to, and what do most of us give it? Doom scrolling, outrage. Clickbait headlines that spike your cortisol before you've even had breakfast. The worst part, you barely notice it's happening. You think you're just catching up, but what you're really doing is feeding your mind junk and expecting it to carry you through a meaningful day. Here's the truth. Your mind is hungry the moment you wake up. It craves direction, purpose, clarity. And just like your body performs better when fueled with clean food, your thoughts perform better when fueled with clean content. Feed it noise, you get confusion. Feed it substance, you get strength. The Stoics knew this long before smartphones existed. They believed the first thoughts of your day should be chosen, not inherited from the world. Seneca wrote about associating with people likely to improve you. In modern terms, that includes the content you consume: books, essays, philosophy, podcasts. These are your morning mentors. 10 pages of something that elevates you, grounds you, or even challenges your assumptions will do more for your growth than hours of passive scrolling ever could. And it's not about becoming some rigid intellectual, it's about being intentional. You're choosing what kind of thoughts you want shaping your decisions, what kind of emotions you want leading your conversations, what kind of values you want guiding your life. Because whether you know it or not, you're being shaped every morning by every input. Carl Jung said you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. And feeding your mind deliberately, is doing something. It's action, not just wishful thinking. Even Marcus Aurelius began each day with reflection, not strategy briefings, not political drama, but inward reflection grounded in philosophy. Why? Because he knew that before he could lead others, he had to lead himself, and leading yourself starts with the ideas you choose to absorb. This doesn't have to be a massive lifestyle shift. You don't need to devour an entire book before sunrise. Start small. 10 minutes, a few pages, a podcast episode that speaks truth into your ear instead of noise. Think of it as tuning your instrument before a performance, aligning your thoughts with what matters most before life starts demanding things from you. Some people wake up and stumble straight into their day half asleep, already reacting to whatever life throws at them. But others, those who seem calm, clear and centered, start differently. They take a few quiet minutes to see the day before they live it, not on a screen, not in a planner, but in the theater of their own mind. They close their eyes and picture who they want to be, how they want to move, how they want to respond, not perfectly but with purpose, and it makes all the difference. Visualization might sound abstract or even a little woo to some, but it's one of the most grounded, science-backed practices for shaping real results. When you imagine yourself succeeding, actually seeing it in detail, your brain begins building the neurological pathways needed to turn that vision into reality. You prime your mind to expect success, to notice opportunities, to filter out distractions. It isn't magic, it's biology, and when done consistently, it can help rewire your mindset to act in alignment with your goals instead of your fears. Stoicism understood this long before neuroscience caught up. The Stoics practiced a form of mental rehearsal called premeditatio malorum, a reflection on what could go wrong, not to catastrophize but to prepare. But they also believed in contemplating who they wished to become. Epictetus said to practice yourself in little things first, then move on to greater ones. Visualization is that practice. You're rehearsing strength, courage, and clarity before the test arrives, training your inner world so your outer world doesn't shake you so easily. Athletes like Michael Phelps use visualization daily, not occasionally, not just before a big event, but daily. He'd mentally rehearse his swim down to the tiniest movement, so when the moment came, his body already knew what to do because his mind had already been there. That's what makes this practice so powerful. You're not just thinking positively, you're mentally rehearsing success, building familiarity with the version of yourself that already knows how to win. And this isn't just for athletes. This is for you, before that meeting, before that difficult conversation, before that personal goal that keeps slipping. Spend 5 quiet minutes seeing the outcome you want. Feel it. Don't just picture yourself doing the task. Picture how you stand, how you breathe, how you handle setbacks. Make it visceral, make it believable. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in Meditations, reminded himself daily how he wanted to act and respond rather than simply react. He didn't leave that to chance. He visualized self-mastery before the pressure arrived. And if it was good enough for the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, maybe it's good enough for the rest of us too. It's easy to forget how much you already have when your attention is constantly pulled toward what's missing. We live in a world that pushes us to chase more success, more recognition, more goals, and in that chase we often lose sight of what's already right in front of us. Gratitude isn't some soft, feel-good concept, it's a discipline, a mental practice, a way of anchoring yourself in reality when everything around you feels like it's spinning. Because here's the truth, your brain is wired to focus on problems. It's a survival instinct, and if you don't take control of that focus, it will naturally drift toward what's wrong, what's lacking, what could go wrong next. But when you stop for just a minute and bring your awareness to what's good, what's working, what's still here, that's when everything starts to shift. Your mindset changes, your stress settles, your perspective expands. The Stoics knew this long before modern science caught up. Seneca wrote that nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart. To him, gratitude wasn't decorative, it was armor, a tool to stay resilient and grounded in a chaotic world. When you choose to be grateful, especially in the face of uncertainty or pressure, you're reclaiming your mental sovereignty, proving that you don't need perfect conditions to find something worth appreciating. Carl Jung, looking at this through a psychological lens, believed much of our suffering stems from disconnection from meaning, from self, and from the present moment. Gratitude acts as a bridge, reconnecting you to the parts of life that matter most. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that process often begins not with some huge breakthrough, but with the quiet realization of how much is already within you and around you. Neuroscience supports what the Stoics and philosophers knew instinctively. Practicing gratitude increases dopamine and serotonin, chemicals that enhance mood and focus, while lowering cortisol and reducing stress and anxiety. Gratitude isn't just emotional, it's biological, priming your brain to look for what's right instead of endlessly scanning for what's wrong. Even Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of governing an empire and facing personal hardship, took time for reflection, reminding himself daily to focus on what was good, useful, and true, not because life was easy but because clarity was essential. He wrote not to indulge in dreams of having what you don't have, but to reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess. That mindset didn't weaken him, it made him steady and capable. Most people wake up and dive headfirst into their to-do list, trying to outrun the stress before it catches up with them. But what if, instead of rushing into the day, you grounded yourself first, not with a task, but with a thought? Not just any thought, but one sharpened through centuries of hardship, clarity, and lived human experience. Stoic wisdom isn't ancient for the sake of tradition, it's timeless because it works. The beauty of Stoic philosophy is its simplicity. It doesn't ask you to escape life's chaos, but to meet it head-on with clarity, discipline, and strength. One sentence, that's often all it takes. One line from Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus, held in your mind like a compass, can keep you steady when the world starts spinning. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Let that sink in. The thoughts you carry with you aren't just background noise, they shape who you're becoming. Reflecting on Stoic wisdom each morning helps you choose those thoughts deliberately. You're not just reacting to life, you're preparing for it, like putting on emotional armor. When you begin the day by reflecting on a single Stoic idea, you're setting your psychological tone, deciding in advance how you'll respond to setbacks, interruptions, criticism, or uncertainty. Instead of flinching, you move with intention. Instead of spinning in circles, you return to center. This is what Epictetus meant when he said it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. Psychologically, this kind of reflection has deep roots. Carl Jung emphasized the importance of examining our inner landscape daily, believing that if we fail to reflect consciously, our unconscious mind ends up directing our behavior without us even realizing it. He once said your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart, that whoever looks outward dreams while whoever looks inward awakens. Morning reflection, then, isn't just philosophical, it's psychological self-defense. You don't need hours. You don't need a full journal entry or a meditation cushion. Just pick a single line, one sentence that speaks to you, read it, sit with it, and ask yourself what it really means, not in some abstract, distant way, but in your actual life. How does this apply to that meeting you're nervous about, to the relationship you're navigating, to the challenge you've been avoiding? Stoicism isn't meant to stay in books, it's meant to live in your decisions. The more often you do this, the more grounded you become. You start to notice when your mind wants to spiral into drama, when your ego wants to lash out, when your fears want to run the show, and in those moments you remember the line you started the day with. That simple sentence becomes a quiet force, guiding you back to yourself. There's a kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with sleep. It's the weight that builds up when your life is lived entirely indoors, beneath fluorescent lights, behind screens under pressure. It's when your mind is overstimulated and your body underwhelmed, constantly plugged in, constantly reacting, and slowly, almost without noticing, you become disconnected from the world, from your body, from yourself. Sometimes the simplest solution isn't more productivity or more stimulation, it's stepping outside. It sounds basic, almost too basic to matter, but spending just a few minutes outdoors, breathing real air, feeling the ground under your feet, letting sunlight or even rain touch your skin, can shift your entire mental state. And it's not just about escaping a room. It's about reconnecting with something ancient, something essential. Because before we had cities, algorithms, and calendars, we had seasons, wind, birdsong, and soil. We're still wired for that world, even if we don't live in it anymore. The Stoics, for all their intellect, never saw themselves as separate from nature. In fact, their entire philosophy was built around aligning with it. Marcus Aurelius wrote about adapting yourself to the life you've been given and truly loving the people destiny has surrounded you with. That includes the world around you. Nature wasn't just a backdrop to the Stoics, it was a teacher, a reminder that everything changes, everything flows, everything is connected. Carl Jung took a similar view, though through a psychological lens. He believed modern man suffered not just from trauma, but from a deep disconnection with the natural world. Writing that natural life is the nourishing soil of the soul. When we lose contact with that soil, literally and metaphorically, we begin to feel ungrounded, anxious, restless. It's no coincidence that a short walk in the woods can calm you more than hours of overthinking ever could. And no, you don't need to go on a weekend retreat in the mountains. Start small. Step outside for 5 minutes in the morning. Feel the cold of the air or the warmth of the sun. Notice the sky, the trees, the birds, the stillness. It's not about turning it into another task. It's about letting nature remind you of what still exists outside the curated chaos of your schedule. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said nature loves to hide, but it's not hiding from you. It's always there, waiting, offering stillness, perspective, beauty, and healing. The more time you spend in it, the less reactive you become, the less urgency everything seems to carry, the more human you start to feel again. There's a reason your mornings feel foggy, slow, or scattered, and it's not just a lack of coffee or motivation. Often it's because you're trying to run a high-performance machine on fumes. We talk a lot about mindset, productivity, discipline, but forget that your brain is a physical organ. It doesn't run on thoughts alone, it runs on fuel, and the quality of that fuel matters more than we like to admit. Too often, breakfast gets sacrificed at the altar of speed. You're running late, so you skip it entirely, or grab something processed, sugary, quick and empty. Sure, that might give you a jolt of energy for a while, but then comes the crash, the fog, the irritability, and your day begins to unravel. Not because you're weak, not because you lack discipline, but because your body was never given what it needed to show up fully. The Stoics would call this a form of self-negligence. Epictetus reminded us that no one is free who isn't master of themselves. And that mastery doesn't just apply to how we think or speak. It applies to how we care for our physical body. Starting your day by honoring your body with real nourishment, that's self-respect in action. Let's break it down practically. Your brain needs certain nutrients to function at its best. Protein to stabilize blood sugar, healthy fats to support focus and hormone regulation, real food that digests slowly and fuels you evenly. Think eggs, avocado, Greek yogurt, nuts, oats, not pastries, soda, or energy drinks. When you choose whole, intentional food first thing in the morning, you're not just feeding your body, you're telling your mind, I came here to perform today. Carl Jung understood the interconnectedness of body and psyche. He believed the physical and psychological were deeply intertwined, and in his view the body wasn't just a vessel, it was a mirror. He wrote that the mind is like the eye, it cannot see itself without reflection, and part of that reflection includes how we treat our physical form. What you feed your body becomes the quality of your thoughts, the steadiness of your emotions, and the clarity of your choices. This isn't about guilt or perfection, it's about awareness. Ask yourself, would you expect a high-performing athlete to train without fuel? Would you expect a surgeon to operate with shaky hands and a light head? Then why expect yourself to think clearly, act decisively, or stay grounded when your most basic needs are unmet? Some mornings the hardest battle isn't getting out of bed, it's facing the voice inside your own head, that subtle, quiet inner critic that shows up before your feet even touch the floor, whispering doubts, replaying yesterday's mistakes, casting a shadow over your confidence before you've had a chance to prove yourself. It's not loud, but it's persistent, and if you don't counter it, it sets the emotional tone for your entire day. That's why affirmations aren't just positive thinking exercises, they're strategic counterattacks. When done with intention, they act like verbal armor. You're not just saying words, you're rewriting the internal script that's been running on autopilot for years, choosing thoughts that align with who you want to become rather than who your fears say you are. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. As emperor of Rome, he started his days not with external proclamations but with inner declarations. In meditations, he reminds himself that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He knew that whatever thoughts you repeatedly speak or focus on become the thoughts that color your reality. They shape your behavior, your perception, and eventually your identity. Affirmations are simply a tool for conscious coloring. They take a few seconds, but they ripple out into how you speak, act, and show up throughout the day. Saying something like, "I control how I respond," or "Today I choose clarity over chaos," may feel strange at first, but your brain is always listening, even when it's you talking to yourself. Carl Jung, from a psychological perspective, emphasized the power of language in shaping our identity. He once wrote that words are animals, alive with a will of their own. When you speak words of power, direction, and grounding, you're not just making noise, you're calling something to life, speaking not only to yourself but into yourself, reminding your subconscious who's in charge. This doesn't mean you have to shout affirmations into a mirror, or recite cheesy slogans that don't resonate with you. The key is sincerity. Choose words that feel rooted in truth, even if they stretch you, and say them with intent, like you're planting something in the soil of your mind, rather than just throwing phrases into the wind. And when you say them out loud, not just in your head. Sound has power, vibration reinforces belief, and when your own voice speaks confidence, resolve, or peace, it becomes harder for doubt to interrupt. Even if your voice shakes, even if it feels awkward, say it anyway. You're not speaking for who you are now, you're speaking for the person you're becoming. Seneca said we become brave by doing brave acts, and the same is true of confidence. You don't become confident and then speak confidently. You speak confidence, especially when it feels hard, and slowly you become it. Affirmations are one of the simplest, most direct ways to practice that bravery daily. You don't need to control the whole day. You just need to own your morning, because how you begin is how you live. Every small decision, every quiet moment of intention, echoes through the rest of your life. Strength, clarity, peace, they're not found, they're practice. If this message spoke to something inside you, there's another video waiting on the screen right now that will take you deeper. Something tells me it's exactly what you need next. Thank you for being a part of Stoivara, where we don't chase perfection, we train for presence. Until next time, stay steady, stay grounded, and keep walking the quiet path forward.